Crafty Ladybug. This lesson is going to be on the small bucket or pail. You can even use this as a flower pot, but this is a small version, which is going to be using a series of 8. We're going to do a roundabout of 8 on our loom. If you've already done the medium bucket, which is this one here, I demoed it as the popcorn bucket. If you wanted to do the medium with the red and white, you're going to need about 25 red and about 25 white bands if you decided to do that. Today's is going to be all one solid color, and we're going to need our loom set in a odd configuration today. You want your pegs level with each other, and you want to take the center peg that's typically in there, you want to remove that. So pause here for a moment and get yourself set up. We'll need a total of about 52 bands to do this small bucket. Pause, get your things together, and then we will come back and we will get started. Okay, we're going to begin, and to begin I'm just choosing a random area here in the center, and I'm going to choose this as my starting point, and I'm just going to lay a single band around the loom, straight down 3 pegs. Then I'm going to come down and make that my 4th round, and now I'm going to come back towards the left with number 5 and number 6 and number 7, and this is going to be my number 8. But before I lay my number 8, I want to pick up my number 1 band, and I want to slide my number 8 band around that peg and then stretch it out over. Then replace your number 1 band. This allows a looping technique that we're about to do and I'm about to show you. So this is going to form the roundabout circle of 8, which is actually the 8 links at the top of the bucket here. And to begin with our bucket, the first thing we want to do is to take out peg number 1 where we started, wiggle that band out, and move it towards where it came from. It's going to be an awkward movement on this one, but you want to reach in and get that band and wiggle it out and move it back in the direction it came from. Another odd movement, wiggle, and back to where it came from. Reach in, grab that bottom band, wiggle, back to where it came from. Reach in, grab that band, pull it out, and move it up. These are going to be a little bit easier for us. Reach in, move forward, reach in, move forward, and now we're to an odd looking triangle, but we just want to reach in. You want to grab that band and move it forward. And if any part falls off slightly, you just want to pull it or push it back down on the peg. Now we just want to push all of this down, and we need to do 4 more rows of bands going around our loom to make it this tall. So if you've already done the popcorn bucket video with me, you will know that I use an extra peg over here on the end, and I just place a band on it. That band is my counting band. That's letting me know that I've done 1 layer, or I'm about to do 1 layer going around the loom. I start off in my starting point, and this is just a single band going all the way around again. And we're going to come back over to our ending point and come forward with that. And that's going to be our first row around, our first layer around. So for our next step, I need to pick up my loom because I can't reach way over here. I guess I probably could. I can give it a try, but it'll be easier if I just pick up my loom and I move it around this way. And what you want to do is to take the bands that are on the bottom, the 2 bands that are on the bottom, and you want to pick them up and slide them over the bands that you have on the top. Pick up the next 2 bands on the bottom, flip them over, next 2 bands on the bottom, and flip them over, 2 bands on the bottom, and flip them over. Now I've come over here to this other peg, and I do have to rotate my loom again just so I can reach them. Same thing, 2 bands, flip it over, bottom 2 bands, flip it over, bottom 2 bands, flip it over, bottom 2 bands, and flip them over. That's our first row done. We're just going to push that down, push those bands down, and we need to start another row. Before I start my other row, I'm laying a band down here, my counter band, and then I'm just going to lay a single band all the way around the loom. Just continue on with that single band, and you guessed it, we are complete. And I need to turn my loom again, and I need to reach down and get the bottom 2 bands. And these can be a little difficult to reach, but just be sure you've got both of them in your hook before you fold it over or flip it over, however you would like to call this technique. Next peg, flip over, 2 bands, flip over, 2 bands, flip over, rotating my loom so I can do the other side, 2 bands, flip over, bottom 2 bands. Every time is going to be the bottom 2 bands. Some of you may be quite familiar with this technique. I am not the greatest with it, I'm not going to lie. It's not my favorite type of looming to do. But I did make some awesomely cute buckets. They are just so cute. I love them. And I'll also be using the same technique for the flower pot. So you can use it as a flower pot also. Okay, back to our job at hand today. We need to do row number 3. So here is my third, 1, 2, 3, third counting band on there. And I'm just going to run this around. Come back, and this is pretty repetitive. I think that's why I don't like doing this so much, because it's just so repetitive. Now we've got all 8 of them on there, and guess what? Bottom 2, loop over, bottom 2, loop over, bottom 2, loop over, bottom 2, loop over. Oop, and that one slid off a little bit. One slides off, it's very important that you push it back down. Now I need to do my other side. And bottom 2, loop over. And I'm just grabbing the bottom 2 each time. And back to my end position, and I'm just going to push those down. And this is our last counter band down here on the end, because we only need 4 rows for this little bucket. And same thing, we're just going around the loom. Kind of repetitive. Didn't I just say that? Repetitive, repeat, repeat, repeat. You guys can feel free to pause or fast forward if I'm going too fast for you or if I'm going too slow for you. Reach in, bottom 2, loop over. Bottom 2, loop over. I'm just straightening that one up because it got twisted on there. Bottom 2, loop over. And that one always wants to fall off on me, so I'm just pushing it back down. Rotating my loom. bottom 2 and flip over, bottom 2 and flip over, bottom 2 and flip over, bottom 2 and flip over. Push that down on your loom. Push all of these down onto your loom. And the next step is going to be a little tricky. Okay, for this part, we need to take one band, twist it on our hook 2 times. Actually, let's go 3 times for this small bucket. So one band, twist it on your hook 3 times. So you want to see 3 bands on there. Take 2 bands and slide that over onto that 3 band setup. And release your hook. And what we need to do is to fish through these bands and make sure we find the correct ends. And you want to match up your bands. So you want to make sure that you have the right band going in the correct direction with the correct one. And when you do, it should form kind of a squishy little eye with an open hole here. What we're going to do with this is we're going to take one side and place it on our first peg that we started from, and the other side is going to be stretched out all the way across here to this opposite peg. And then what we're going to be doing next is to take the remaining bands and we're going to be looping through that center opening, push through that center opening, grab that band and pull it up through that center, reclaim it on your hook and stretch it out to the opposite corner peg. You're going to reach in again, grabbing that band, reclaim it back on your hook, and stretch it out over the other corner peg. So essentially, we're sort of doing a starburst. Like this is our center of what would be a starburst. And we're going to continue to fill these other pegs up in the same fashion. All right, we're going to be completing these other 4 pegs. Reach into your center, grab that band, reclaim it on your hook, and take it off to your peg there. Reach into the center, grabbing the band, pulling it through the center, reclaim it on your hook, and place it on your peg over here. We still have 2 more pegs that we need to do. We're going to reach in, grab that band, grabbing the band, pull it through the center, reclaim it on the hook, and go to that peg. Reach in, grabbing the band, pulling it through the center, and that one just flew off on me, so I'm going to do that again. There we go. Pulled to the center and placed onto that peg. So your item, your little pot, should look like this. We now have a big eye in the center and we have 8 bands tethered to it. And next thing we need to do is to loom our product shut. I'm going to start over here on my starting peg, and I know that that's my starting peg because here were my counter bands, and that's how I know where my starting peg was. We are going to be reaching into that starter peg, and you want to grab the very bottom band, reaching in through the cup area of the peg, grab that bottom band, hook it, bring it up through everything, and wiggle it out. You're going to take this band and place it over on the other left peg. We're going to reach into what is now the left peg, and we're going to grab the band on the bottom, and if your bands are overlaying each other, you want to straighten them up. In my case, my bands were just overlaying each other there. So I want to straighten them up. I only want to get the bottom band. If you need to separate them out so you can see them better, separate them out so you can see them better. But I'm reaching into that upper left peg, grabbing the bottom band, wiggle it out, and this one is a little tight for me, so I just need a little extra help wiggling that out. And here I have it, and I'm going to bring it down a peg. Reach in, grabbing the bottom band, wiggle it out, and come back a peg, back down. Reaching in, grabbing that bottom band, wiggle it out, and down a peg. Reach in, wiggle out your band, and this one's going to come over here towards the right. Here, I need to just separate these out so I have a clearer view. I'm going to reach in, grab that bottom band, wiggle it out, and come forward a peg. Reach in, bottom band, wiggle it out, and come forward. Reach in, bottom band, wiggle it out, and come forward. Now we're back to our starting peg. And for a starting peg, you will now see 3 rings. You'll see 3 rings here. And over on your left side, you're also going to see, on your left side, you're going to see 4 rings. So there are 3 bands or rings here. We need to reach in and grab that bottom one, wiggle it out, and push it up on our hook. And we need to reach into our left one, grabbing just that bottom band, wiggle it out, and once again it's tight over there, wiggle that out, and reclaim it on your hook. These were your bottom bands. And what we're going to do is to slip knot those together, and that is how we're going to tie off the whole item. So I am just tying a slip knot. I slip knotted those 2 bands together. That is all I did. And now we're ready to take our item off the loom. Many of you know that I use the back of my hook to do this. This just doesn't give as much tension as some other items do, just ripping it off. And here we have got our little pot with our finished bottom. It doesn't look as well as this pot because you need to stick your finger inside the pot and just stretch things out a little bit. You can also take and just place it on your index finger and just wiggle it around, gently stretching it out. But here we have got our little terracotta pot, flower pot, or a bucket for your popcorn. And the only other thing that we need to do is to hide our little tying off band. And I just reach through the opening and pull that in through. And here we have got our small bucket. You can do any color that you choose, or flower pot, as some of you will want to use it for in an upcoming tutorial. And also if you wanted a small size of popcorn, this is the small and this is the medium. Here is my large, and then the jumbo, which the jumbo is considerably bigger than the small. I hope you guys will stay tuned for more tutorials. If you've done this item and you want to show off your work, post it on my Facebook page, Crafty Ladybug Rainbow Loom Creations, or Instagram is Crafty Ladybug. Tag me on Instagram and I will see your stuff. Thank you so much, and I hope you'll join us again.